What if I told you that the reason money keeps slipping through your fingers, opportunities keep disappearing right before they materialize, and no matter how hard you work you can't seem to get ahead, isn't about your effort, your education, or even bad luck? There's an invisible force, a spiritual entity that the Bible actually talks about, that's been operating in your life without you even knowing it. It's called the spirit of scarcity, and it's been blocking your blessings, closing doors that should be wide open, and keeping you trapped in cycles of lack that were never supposed to be your reality. But here's what's about to change everything. There are specific words, a declaration so powerful that when you speak it for just 3 consecutive nights, this spirit has to release its grip on your finances, your peace, your future, everything. Thousands of people have done this and watched their lives completely transform within days. Doors that were sealed shut for years suddenly flew open. Money showed up from places they never expected. Opportunities they thought were impossible became reality. And by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly what those words are and how to use them to break free from scarcity forever. But you gotta stick with me, because missing even one piece of what I'm about to share could be the difference between staying stuck and stepping into the abundance God's been trying to release over your life. So if you're tired of struggling, tired of watching everyone else prosper while you stay in the same place, tired of feeling like there's an invisible ceiling over your life, then what you're about to discover is gonna change everything. Don't go anywhere, because your breakthrough is closer than you think. And it starts with understanding what's really been fighting against you this whole time. There's something invisible that wraps itself around people's lives, and honestly, most folks don't even realize it's there. It's like wearing glasses with dark lenses for so long that you forget the world actually has color. This thing we're talking about, this spirit of scarcity, it's way more than just having an empty wallet or struggling to pay bills at the end of the month. No, it goes deeper than that. It's a mindset, a way of seeing the world that convinces you there's never enough, that you're always one step behind, that doors close before you even get a chance to knock. And the wild part? It doesn't just mess with your bank account. This spirit creeps into every corner of your existence. It affects how you feel about yourself, how you relate to others, even how you connect with God. When scarcity has its grip on you, you start making decisions from a place of fear instead of faith. You hold back when you should step forward. You say no to opportunities because you're convinced they're not really for you. It's like there's this invisible ceiling above your head. And no matter how hard you try to break through, something always pushes you back down. Your emotions get heavy, your spirit feels dry, and sometimes even your body starts showing signs of the weight you're carrying. Now, here's what really gets interesting about this whole thing. The spirit of scarcity doesn't announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. It whispers. It plants little seeds of doubt that grow into forests of limitation. You might hear yourself saying things like, "That's just not for people like me," or "I'm not lucky enough for that kind of blessing." These aren't just random thoughts, my friend. They're symptoms of something bigger working behind the scenes. And the crazy thing is, when you're in it, everything seems to confirm what you already believe. You see evidence of lack everywhere because that's what you're tuned into. People living under this spirit often feel like they're running on a treadmill, working hard but getting nowhere. They watch others prosper and wonder what secret ingredient they're missing. But it's not about ingredients or formulas or being in the right place at the right time. It's about what's operating in the spiritual realm that's manifesting in the physical one. See, there's a battle happening that most people can't see with their natural eyes. And when scarcity has claimed territory in your life, it fights to keep that ground. It doesn't want you to wake up to the truth of who you really are and what you're actually entitled to as a child of God. The emotional toll of living this way is real, and it's heavy. You feel anxious about the future, frustrated with the present, and sometimes even bitter about the past. Relationships suffer because scarcity makes you hold onto things too tightly or push people away. because you're convinced you don't deserve good things. Your physical health can take a hit too, because stress and worry aren't just mental games. They show up in your body in sleepless nights and tension that won't let go. The whole system gets affected when scarcity sets up camp in your life. But here's the thing that changes everything. And this is where hope starts breaking through the darkness. This spirit of scarcity, it's not your destiny. It's not a life sentence. It's actually something that can be broken, shattered, removed completely from your life. There are specific ways it operates, specific signs that reveal its presence, and specific actions you can take to kick it out for good. Understanding what you're dealing with is the first step to freedom, and once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. And that awareness, that's where your journey to abundance really begins. You know what's frustrating? Working your tail off and feeling like you're spinning your wheels in mud. That's one of the clearest signs that scarcity has locked its chains around someone's life. It's not laziness, it's not lack of effort, and it's definitely not because the person isn't trying hard enough. There's just this pattern that keeps repeating itself, like a broken record that won't stop playing the same sad song. Opportunities show up looking promising, and then poof, they vanish into thin air. Doors that seemed wide open suddenly slam shut right when you're about to walk through them. And the person stuck in this cycle starts wondering if they've got some kind of curse hanging over their head. The constant struggle becomes so normal that it almost feels like that's just how life is supposed to be. Bills pile up even when there should be enough to cover them. Unexpected expenses pop up out of nowhere, like they've been waiting in the shadows for the perfect moment to attack. Relationships that could bring good connections somehow fall apart for reasons that don't even make sense. Job opportunities slip away at the last minute. Business ideas that should work just don't gain traction, no matter how much effort gets poured into them. It's like there's an invisible wall between the person and their breakthrough, and every time they try to climb it, something pulls them back down. But here's where it gets even more complicated, and this is the part most people don't talk about. When you're trapped in scarcity, you start sabotaging yourself without even realizing it. Your own thoughts become your worst enemy. You might get a great opportunity, but then that little voice inside starts whispering doubts. You're not qualified enough. Someone else deserves this more than you do. What if you fail and everyone sees it? What if it's too good to be true? And before you know it, you've talked yourself out of the very thing that could have changed your life. That's not just negative thinking. That's a spiritual battle playing out in your mind. These self-sabotaging behaviors show up in all kinds of sneaky ways. Some people procrastinate on important decisions until the opportunity passes. Others overcommit to things that don't matter and ignore what actually could move them forward. There's this tendency to stay in the comfort zone even when that zone is uncomfortable, simply because it's familiar. The devil you know feels safer than the blessing you don't, right? Wrong, but that's how scarcity tricks you. It convinces you that playing small is wisdom, when really it's just fear dressed up in practical clothing. And those negative thought patterns? They run on repeat like a mental playlist you can't seem to skip. The emotional weight of all this is crushing. There's this constant sense of nothing ever works out for me that colors every new possibility with skepticism. Hope becomes hard to hold on to because disappointment has shown up so many times before. Some folks get bitter, watching others succeed and wondering why God seems to favor everyone except them. Others just go numb, going through the motions of life without expecting anything to really change. The energy it takes to keep hoping and keep trying when nothing seems to stick, that's exhausting. And exhaustion makes it even harder to fight back against the patterns that keep you stuck. Now, recognizing these symptoms isn't about beating yourself up or feeling worse than you already do. Actually, it's the opposite. When you can name what's happening, when you can point at the patterns and say, hey, that's not just bad luck, that's a spiritual attack, something shifts. Awareness is powerful because you can't fight an enemy you can't see. And once you see these symptoms clearly, once you understand they're not who you are, but what's been done to you, well, that changes the whole game. Because if scarcity came from somewhere, it can also go somewhere. And that somewhere is out of your life for good. Here's something that'll blow your mind when you really sit down and think about it. The same tool you use every single day without even thinking about it. The same thing you've been using since you were a little kid learning to talk has more power than most weapons you could ever hold in your hands. We're talking about words, my friend. Not just sounds that come out of your mouth or letters strung together on a screen. Words carry weight in the spiritual realm that most people never tap into because they don't realize what they're holding. Every time you open your mouth, you're either building or tearing down, creating or destroying, blessing or cursing. And yeah, that includes the words you speak over your own life. The Bible doesn't play around when it comes to this topic. There's this verse in Proverbs that hits different when you really get it. It says death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Think about that for a second. Death and life, not just good vibes and bad vibes, but actual life or death power sitting right there in your mouth. When you speak something, you're not just making noise. You're releasing energy into the atmosphere. You're giving form to things that were just floating around as possibilities. Your words are like seeds that get planted in the soil of reality, and whatever you plant is eventually gonna grow and produce a harvest. Now, this works both ways, and that's where it gets real important to pay attention. You can speak life over yourself, your family, your finances, your future, and watch things start shifting in that direction. Or you can spend your days complaining, declaring lack, talking about how nothing ever works out. And guess what? You're gonna keep getting exactly what you're calling into existence. It's not magic, it's spiritual law. God spoke the entire universe into being with words. He said, "Let there be light," and boom, there was light. You're made in His image, which means your words carry creative power too. Maybe not on a cosmic scale, but definitely on the scale of your own life and circumstances. The enemy knows this truth better than most believers do, and that's why one of his favorite strategies is to get you talking trash about yourself and your situation. If he can control your mouth, he can control your destiny. Think about how many times a day you might say things like, "I'm so broke, I'll never get ahead. This always happens to me. I'm just unlucky." Every single one of those statements is a declaration, a prophecy you're speaking over your own life. And the spiritual realm doesn't care if you meant it seriously or if you were just venting. Words are words, and they go to work regardless of your intentions. That's why being intentional about what comes out of your mouth isn't just positive thinking. It's spiritual warfare. When you start using your words as weapons against scarcity and limitation, everything changes. Instead of agreeing with the circumstances you see, you start declaring what God says about you. Instead of describing the problem over and over, you start speaking the solution into existence. It feels weird at first, especially if you've spent years doing the opposite. Your mind might push back and say, "But that's not true right now," when you declare abundance over an empty bank account. But here's the key. You're not lying about where you are. You're calling forth where you're going. You're using your words to create a pathway from here to there. This isn't about just saying nice things and hoping for the best. This is about understanding that words are spiritual tools, and when you combine them with faith, when you speak them with authority and expectation, they become unstoppable forces. They break chains, they open doors, they shift atmospheres, they change outcomes. The transformation you've been praying for might be waiting on the other side of what you're willing to consistently speak over your life. And once you grab hold of this truth, once you really get that your tongue is either a weapon for your freedom or a tool for your bondage, you'll never be careless with your words again. So now you're probably wondering, why 3 nights? Why not just say it once with faith and call it done? Well, there's something powerful happening in the spiritual realm when you commit to repetition, especially over 3 nights. And before you think this is just some random number someone pulled out of thin air, let's talk about why 3 shows up so much throughout Scripture. It's not coincidence, it's divine design. Jesus was in the tomb for 3 days before he rose in complete victory over death. Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days before his deliverance. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and later Jesus asked him 3 times if he loved him, restoring what was broken. See the pattern? 3 represents completion, resurrection, and transformation. When you repeat something for 3 consecutive nights, you're not just going through religious motions. You're creating a spiritual rhythm that aligns your heart, mind, and faith with what you're declaring. The first night, you're breaking ground, pushing back against the resistance that's been holding you captive. It's like announcing to the spiritual realm that things are about to change, whether the enemy likes it or not. You're planting a flag in territory that's been occupied by scarcity and saying not anymore. That first declaration might feel shaky, your faith might be wobbly, and doubt might try to creep in. But you show up anyway and speak those words with whatever faith you've got. The second night is where things start getting interesting. You're building on what you started. You're not starting from scratch. You're adding another layer, another declaration, another stand against the spirit of lack. This is where your faith starts growing because you already made it through night 1. You already proved to yourself that you can do this. The repetition begins to reprogram your mind, shifting you out of old thought patterns and into new ones. Your spirit starts catching fire because it recognizes truth being spoken consistently. The enemy sees you're serious, that this wasn't just an emotional moment that'll fade by morning. You're committed, and commitment scares the mess out of anything trying to keep you bound. By the third night, something powerful happens in the spiritual atmosphere around you. You've completed the cycle. You've demonstrated persistence, faith, and determination. 3 nights of declaring freedom, 3 nights of rejecting scarcity, 3 nights of aligning yourself with God's promises. This isn't about earning anything or proving yourself to God. He already loves you and wants you free. This is about you getting yourself positioned to receive what He's already made available. It's about your heart catching up with your mouth, your faith catching up with your declaration. That third night seals something spiritually that the first and second nights set in motion. Repetition also does something crucial in your own mind and heart. The first time you declare something that contradicts your current reality, your brain might laugh at you. It might say, yeah, right, look around, that's not what I see. But when you come back the second night and say it again, and then the third night and say it again, you're training your mind to line up with truth instead of circumstances. You're building faith through action. Faith comes by hearing, right? Well, when you speak it yourself night after night, you're hearing it too. You're becoming convinced of what you're declaring. Your conviction grows stronger, and conviction is what carries you through until you see the manifestation. There's also something special about doing this at night. When the world gets quiet, when distractions fade, when it's just you and God in those still hours, your words carry differently. Your focus is sharper. The spiritual realm is active, and you're intentionally engaging with it through your declarations. 3 nights might seem like a small commitment, but it's enough to create real shift without being so long that people give up before they finish. It's a faith challenge that's doable but significant, simple but powerful. And when you complete those 3 nights, you'll know something changed, even if you can't fully explain it yet. All right, this is where the rubber meets the road. You've learned about the spirit of scarcity. You've identified the symptoms. You understand the power of words. And you know why 3 nights matters. Now it's time to get specific about exactly what you're gonna say. These aren't just pretty words or positive affirmations you throw out into the universe hoping something sticks. These are declarations rooted in authority, backed by the name that's above every other name, aimed directly at breaking the chains that have held you captive. When you speak these words with faith and conviction, you're not asking permission, you're taking back what's rightfully yours. His. the declaration, and pay attention because every single part of this matters. In the name of Jesus, I reject the spirit of scarcity. I receive the abundance of God, and I declare complete liberation over my life. Now, let's break this down piece by piece so you understand what you're actually doing when you speak. This out. First part, in the name of Jesus. This isn't just a religious phrase you tack on to make it sound holy. The name of Jesus carries all authority in heaven and on earth. When you invoke that name, you're not coming in your own strength or your own merit. You're coming under the covering and power of the one who already defeated every enemy, including the spirit of lack. The second part, I reject the spirit of scarcity, is you taking a stand. You're not passively hoping scarcity decides to leave on its own. You're actively, forcefully, decisively rejecting it. You're telling it that it has no place in your life, no authority over your future, no right to occupy space in your mind or circumstances. This is you drawing a line in the sand and saying, not today, not tomorrow, not ever again. Rejection is powerful because it's a refusal to agree with what's been operating. You're breaking agreement with lack, with limitation, with the lies that have kept you stuck. You're saying, I see you for what you are, and I'm done with you. Now the third part shifts from defense to offense. I receive the abundance of God. Notice it doesn't say I hope for, or I wish for, or maybe someday I'll have. It says I receive, present tense, active voice. You're reaching out with faith and pulling towards yourself what God has already made available. Abundance isn't something you have to beg God for or convince Him to give you. It's already part of your inheritance as His child. But you gotta receive it. You gotta open your hands, open your heart, open your expectation and say, yes, I'll take that. This part rewrites your identity from someone who lacks to someone who receives from a generous Father. The final piece brings it all together. I declare complete liberation over my life. Liberation means freedom, total and absolute. Not partial freedom where you're still kinda struggling, but maybe a little less than before. Complete liberation. Every chain broken, every door opened, every limitation shattered. When you declare this, you're speaking to your entire life, every area that scarcity has touched. Your finances, your relationships, your health, your peace of mind, your future, all of it comes under this declaration. You're not just asking for a breakthrough in one area while everything else stays stuck. You're going for total freedom, and you're declaring it with authority because you know who you are and whose you are. When you put all these pieces together and speak them out loud for 3 consecutive nights, you're engaging in serious spiritual warfare. You're not playing around. You're not being religious. You're being strategic and intentional about dismantling what's been built against you. Each word carries weight. Each phrase has purpose. And when you speak this declaration with faith, believing that what you're saying has power to change things, the spiritual realm has to respond. This isn't about volume or emotion, though those might show up. This is about authority and conviction. So when night comes and it's time to speak these words, you show up ready, focused, and expectant. So you've done it. You showed up for 3 nights, spoke those words with faith, and now you're wondering what happens next. Here's the thing, transformation doesn't always announce itself with fireworks and dramatic moments, though sometimes it does. More often, it starts subtle. You might wake up one morning and notice something feels different inside you, like a weight you didn't even realize you were carrying just lifted off your shoulders. Or maybe you catch yourself thinking about your future without that automatic dread that used to show up. These shifts might seem small, but they're evidence that something broke in the spiritual realm, and now it's starting to show up in your everyday reality. Some folks see changes happen fast, like doors flying open within days. A job opportunity appears out of nowhere. Someone reaches out with an offer they weren't expecting. Money shows up from a source they forgot about. A relationship that was strained suddenly starts healing. These kinds of obvious breakthroughs are amazing when they happen, and they definitely can happen. But don't get discouraged if your manifestation looks different. God works in all kinds of ways, and His timing is always perfect even when it doesn't match our expectations. The key is staying alert, keeping your eyes open for the shifts that are happening, because they are happening whether you see them immediately or not. One of the first things people notice is a change in their peace level. That constant anxiety about money or the future starts losing its grip. You find yourself less worried, less stressed, more confident that things are gonna work out. That's not just positive thinking kicking in. That's your spirit responding to the freedom you declared. Peace is actually a sign that you're moving into alignment with abundance, because scarcity and peace can't coexist. When scarcity leaves, peace moves in and sets up residence. And from that place of peace, you start making better decisions, seeing opportunities more clearly, and moving with wisdom instead of desperation. Your perspective shifts too, and this is huge. Things that used to look like insurmountable obstacles start looking like challenges you can actually tackle. Ideas start flowing that you didn't have before. You see possibilities where you used to only see dead ends. This isn't you becoming delusional or ignoring reality. This is you finally seeing reality without the dark filter of scarcity distorting everything. You're viewing your life through the lens of abundance now, and that changes what you notice, what you pursue, and what you believe is actually possible for you. Your vision expands, and expanded vision always leads to expanded territory. Now, here's something important to understand. Just because you completed the 3 nights doesn't mean you can go back to speaking lack and limitation over yourself. The breakthrough you experience creates an opening, but you gotta protect it. You gotta maintain it. If you go right back to complaining, declaring poverty, and agreeing with scarcity, you're basically inviting it back in. Think of it like cleaning your house. You don't deep clean everything and then immediately start throwing trash on the floor again. You maintain what you worked hard to achieve. Same thing with your spiritual freedom. You keep speaking life, keep declaring abundance, keep rejecting any attempt by the enemy to re-establish that old stronghold. Pay attention to everything in the days and weeks following your 3 nights. Watch for the subtle shifts and the obvious ones. Notice how conversations go differently. Notice how opportunities start presenting themselves. Notice how your own thoughts and feelings about your life begin to transform. Some changes will be internal, some will be external, but they're all connected. God is moving on your behalf, rearranging things in the spiritual realm that will soon manifest in the physical. Your job is to stay expectant, stay grateful, and stay faithful to the new way of speaking and thinking you stepped into. The best is literally on its way to you right now. Breaking free from scarcity is one thing, staying free is another. And honestly, this is where a lot of people mess up. They get their breakthrough, they celebrate, and then they slowly drift back into old patterns without even realizing it. Freedom requires maintenance, my friend. It's not a one-time event, it's a lifestyle. The mentality that kept you bound for years doesn't just disappear because you had a powerful 3-night experience. You gotta actively cultivate a new way of thinking, a new way of speaking, a new way of seeing yourself and your life. This is about creating daily habits that reinforce your freedom and protect the territory you just took back. First thing you gotta lock in is your thought life. Your mind is a battlefield, and if you're not intentional about what you allow to take root there, weeds are gonna start growing again. When a thought of lack tries to sneak in, and it will try, you catch it immediately and replace it with truth. The Bible talks about taking every thought captive, and that's exactly what this is. You don't let scarcity-minded thoughts run wild in your head anymore. You challenge them, you reject them, you speak the opposite. This takes practice, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Eventually, your default thinking starts shifting from lack to abundance naturally. Prayer and gratitude need to become non-negotiables in your daily routine. When you start your day talking to God, thanking Him for what He's already done and what He's about to do, you're setting the tone for everything that follows. Gratitude is like armor against scarcity, because you can't be truly grateful and truly worried at the same time. When you're thanking God for provision, you're acknowledging that He's your source, not your job, not your circumstances, not the economy. This keeps your heart positioned right. And when your heart is positioned right, your words flow right, your actions follow right, and your results start lining up with God's promises. Here's something that might surprise you. Generosity is one of the most powerful weapons against scarcity. When you're generous with what you have, even when it doesn't seem like much, you're declaring that you trust God's abundance more than you fear lack. You're proving to yourself and to the spiritual realm that scarcity no longer controls you. The enemy wants you to hoard, to grip tight, to operate from fear of not having enough. But when you give, when you bless others, when you're generous with your time, your resources, your encouragement, you're walking in the opposite spirit of scarcity. And what you make room for by giving is always bigger than what you let go of. Your confession, what you speak over yourself daily, has to stay consistent with your freedom. You can't talk broke and expect to live blessed. You can't speak lack and expect to walk in abundance. Every single day, you gotta be intentional about the words coming out of your mouth. Declare provision over your finances. Speak blessing over your work. Affirm that you are the head and not the tail, above and not beneath. Call those things that aren't as though they are. Just like the word says, it might feel repetitive, but repetition is what creates lasting change. You're literally reprogramming years of wrong thinking and wrong speaking. So yeah, you gotta stay at it consistently. Surround yourself with the right voices too. If you're hanging around people who constantly complain about money, talk about how hard life is, and speak negativity over everything, that's gonna influence you whether you want it to or not. You need people in your life who speak faith, who encourage abundance thinking, who remind you of God's promises when you're tempted to forget. Your environment matters. The content you consume matters. The conversations you participate in matter. All of this is either reinforcing your freedom or slowly eroding it. So be selective, be intentional, and protect your mental and spiritual space like your breakthrough depends on it. Because honestly, it does. You know what's encouraging? Knowing that what you're going through, this battle with scarcity, it's not new. People in the Bible faced the exact same thing, and God showed up in powerful ways to bring them from lack into abundance. Take the widow of Zarephath, for example. This woman was down to her last meal, literally preparing to cook the final bit of flour and oil she had so she and her son could eat one last time before they starved to death. That's about as scarce as it gets, right? But then the prophet Elijah shows up and asks her to make him something to eat first. Now that sounds crazy on the surface, but what he was really asking her to do was act in faith instead of fear. She had every reason to say no, to protect what little she had left, to operate from that scarcity mindset that screams there's not enough. But she didn't. She chose to obey, to give from her lack, to trust God's promise through the prophet that her flour and oil wouldn't run out. And you know what happened. That jar of flour and jug of oil kept producing day after day after day. She fed herself, her son, and the prophet throughout an entire famine. One act of faith-filled obedience broke the cycle of scarcity and opened up a supernatural stream of provision. Her willingness to move past fear and into trust changed everything for her household. Then there's Joseph, and man, his story is something else. This guy went from being his father's favorite son to being sold into slavery by his own brothers. Talk about your life taking a turn for the worse. He ended up in Egypt, far from home, stripped of everything. He worked his way up in Potiphar's house only to get falsely accused and thrown in prison. Most people would have given up, would have accepted that this was just their lot in life. But Joseph kept his integrity, kept serving God, kept believing that there was more ahead even when everything behind him was pain and loss. God had a plan that Joseph couldn't see yet. While he was in that prison, he interpreted dreams, he stayed faithful, and he waited for his moment. And when that moment came, boy did it come big. He went from prisoner to second in command of the entire nation of Egypt in one day. One conversation with Pharaoh changed his status completely. He went from having nothing to managing everything, from scarcity to abundance so extreme that he was able to save entire nations from famine. His story shows that where you are right now isn't where you're gonna stay. God can flip your situation so fast it'll make your head spin. And often he uses the very thing that looked like your downfall as the setup for your comeback. Both of these stories have something crucial in common. Faith and obedience broke the cycle of scarcity. The widow had to trust God's word through the prophet even when it didn't make natural sense. Joseph had to keep serving, keep believing, keep maintaining his character even when circumstances said he was forgotten. Neither of them just sat around hoping things would magically get better. They took action, they stayed faithful, and they positioned themselves to receive what God wanted to do in their lives. Scarcity tried to convince them that their situation was permanent, but they refused to agree with that lie. What these biblical examples prove is that God specializes in turning lack into abundance. He doesn't just give you enough to scrape by, He gives you overflow. He gives you more than you need so you can be a blessing to others. The widow fed a prophet and her family. Joseph saved nations from starvation. When God breaks the spirit of scarcity off your life, it's never just about you. It's about what He wants to do through you once you're walking in freedom. So when you look at your situation and it feels impossible, remember these stories. Remember that the same God who multiplied flour and oil, who promoted a prisoner to prime minister, He's the same God who's watching over your life right now. All right, let's talk about the stuff that can sabotage your freedom if you're not careful. Because here's the reality. You can do the 3 nights. You can speak the right words. You can even see some breakthroughs start happening and still end up stuck again if certain things aren't dealt with. The first big one is lack of faith. Not just saying you believe, but actually believing deep down in your core that God can and will do what He promised. When doubt creeps in and you entertain it, when you start questioning whether this whole thing is real or if it actually works, you're basically closing the door you just opened. Faith isn't a feeling, it's a decision to trust God's word over what you see. And if you're not willing to make that decision and stick with it, your breakthrough is gonna struggle to manifest. Murmuring and complaining will kill your progress faster than almost anything else. Remember the Israelites in the wilderness? God delivered them from slavery in Egypt with miracles and signs, but they couldn't stop complaining. They grumbled about the food, the water, the leadership, everything. And what should have been an 11-day journey turned into 40 years of wandering. Complaining isn't just venting or being honest about your feelings. It's actually agreeing with the enemy's narrative about your life. Every time you complain about your lack, your limitations, your struggles, you're speaking those things back into existence. You're reinforcing the very thing you're trying to break free from. Your mouth can either build your future or destroy it, and complaining is straight up destruction. Then there's the attachment to the past. Some people get so comfortable with their story of struggle that it becomes their identity. They've been broke for so long, been struggling for so many years, that they don't actually know who they are without that narrative. It sounds strange, but there's a weird comfort in familiar pain. At least you know what to expect, right? But when God starts bringing you into something new, into abundance and freedom, it requires you to let go of that old identity. You can't carry your victim story into your victory season. You gotta be willing to release the past, stop rehearsing all the ways life did you wrong, and step into the new thing God is doing. Self-sabotage is sneaky because you don't always realize you're doing it. This shows up when opportunities come, but you find reasons not to pursue them. When doors open but you convince yourself you're not ready, not qualified, not worthy. When provision shows up but you push it away because it feels too good to be true. People who've lived in scarcity for a long time often don't feel comfortable with abundance when it starts showing up. It feels foreign, almost wrong. So they unconsciously sabotage it, pushing away the very blessings they've been praying for. This is why renewing your mind is so critical. You gotta get comfortable with the idea that good things are actually supposed to happen to you, that you deserve God's blessings, that abundance is your inheritance. Sometimes the thing blocking your complete freedom is unforgiveness. When you're holding onto bitterness towards people who hurt you, towards God for things you think He should have prevented, even towards yourself for past mistakes, that unforgiveness creates a blockage. It's like trying to receive with a closed fist. You can't grab hold of new blessings when you're still gripping old pain. Forgiveness isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's about releasing yourself from the prison of resentment so you can move forward. As long as you're chained to the past through unforgiveness, you can't fully step into the future God has for you. And here's the last one that trips people up: the comfort zone disguised as wisdom. Scarcity can feel safe because it's familiar. You know how to survive in lack. You've developed coping mechanisms. You've learned to manage with less. When God starts calling you higher, it requires risk, faith, and stepping into unknown territory. Your mind might tell you that staying where you are is just being responsible, being realistic, being smart. But sometimes what looks like wisdom is actually fear keeping you small. Breaking free from scarcity completely means being willing to step out of what's comfortable into what's possible. You gotta recognize when the enemy is using your own logic against you to keep you from the abundance that's waiting on the other side of obedience. Let's get something straight right from the start. Scarcity was never God's idea for your life. When He created everything, when He spoke the universe into existence, lack wasn't part of the blueprint. Look at the Garden of Eden. Everything Adam and Eve needed was right there, abundant, overflowing, more than enough. They didn't have to beg for provision or worry about where their next meal was coming from. God's original design was abundance, overflow, provision without stress or struggle. Somewhere along the way, through sin and the fall of mankind, scarcity entered the picture. But that doesn't mean it's what God wants for His children. Actually, it's the complete opposite. Jesus made this crystal clear when He said He came so that we could have life, and have it abundantly. Not just barely getting by life, not just surviving until we get to heaven life. Abundant life, full life, rich life, life that overflows with purpose and provision and peace. That word abundant in the original language means excessive, overflowing, more than enough, above and beyond what's needed. God isn't interested in you just making it through. He wants you thriving, flourishing, living with such overflow that you become a blessing to everyone around you. That's His heart, that's His plan, and that's what He's been trying to get you to see all along. When you really understand that abundance is God's will for you, it changes how you pray. You stop begging like a stranger hoping for scraps and start asking like a child who knows their father's heart. You stop wondering if it's okay to want good things and start receiving them with gratitude and confidence. See, poverty mindset makes you think that wanting more is selfish or greedy. But God actually gets glory when His children are blessed and walking in provision. It shows the world that He's a good Father, that serving Him comes with benefits, that His promises are real and not just nice ideas in a book. Abundance isn't just about money, though financial provision is definitely part of it. It's about living with purpose that gives your life meaning. It's about having peace that guards your heart and mind even when circumstances get shaky. It's about relationships that build you up instead of tearing you down. It's about health and strength to do what God's called you to do. It's about joy that bubbles up from deep inside regardless of what's happening around you. This is the abundant life Jesus died to give you access to. He didn't go to the cross so you could barely scrape by and live defeated. He went there to give you victory, freedom, and fullness in every area of your existence. The enemy has worked overtime to convince believers that poverty is somehow holy, that struggling is proof of humility, that wanting good things means you're not spiritual enough. That's a lie straight from hell designed to keep you powerless and ineffective. God wants you blessed so you can be a blessing. He wants you financially free so you can fund His kingdom work. He wants you healthy so you can serve with strength. He wants you at peace so you can think clearly and make wise decisions. When you're living in the abundance God intended, you become dangerous to the kingdom of darkness because you're operating from overflow instead of desperation. This is your inheritance as a child of God. Not someday in the distant future, not just in heaven, but right here, right now, in this life. Scarcity doesn't fit who you are anymore. It doesn't match your identity. You are chosen, loved, adopted into the family of the King of Kings. And children of the King don't live in lack. They don't beg for scraps or settle for less than what their Father has provided. So when you start living from this truth, when you align your thoughts and words and actions with God's original plan of abundance, everything shifts. You're not trying to get God to bless you. You're stepping into the blessing that's already been released. You're not hoping for abundance, you're walking in it. And that, my friend, is exactly where God always intended for you to be. So now you've got everything you need. You know what the spirit of scarcity is, how it's been operating in your life, and most importantly, you know exactly how to break free from it. The question is, what are you gonna do with this information? Are you gonna close this video, go back to your normal routine, and let another day, another week, another year pass by while scarcity keeps its grip on your life? Or are you gonna take action tonight? I'm talking about speaking those words we covered, rejecting scarcity, receiving abundance, declaring complete liberation over your life for 3 consecutive nights starting today. What's 3 nights compared to the years you've spent struggling? What's a few minutes each night compared to the freedom that's waiting on the other side? Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop convincing yourself you'll do it later. Tonight is your night one. Right now is when your breakthrough begins. So here's what I need to know. Are you ready to finally walk away from lack and step into the abundant life God has for you? Are you done playing small and ready to live at the level you were created for? Drop a comment below and tell me you're committed to doing this. Say I'm breaking free so I know you're serious about this. And listen, if this message spoke to you, if something shifted inside while you were watching, then somebody else needs to hear this too. Share this video with someone who's been struggling, who needs hope, who needs to know that their situation can change. And make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell because we're gonna keep dropping truth that sets people free. And you don't want to miss what's coming next. Your abundance journey starts right now. Let's go.